Okay, thank you, Professor Larson. Could you perhaps explain what your presentation today was about and give us a sort of brief summary of what you were talking about today?
Surely, I was asked to follow John Brooke, one of the great historians in science and religion, and he had expounded the complexity theory, as it were. That is, that the story about the interaction of science and religion is not a simple warfare. It's a very complicated dynamic that involves tensions, but certainly, and conflict, as well as support, interactions in different ways. And I, following him, was asked to speak about one of the famous interactions of science and religion, the story of eugenics. Eugenics is, or was, though it is still continuing, and that was part of my point, was a development over the last, say, 150 years of the idea of trying to reshape ourselves using science. Now, this has been a dream ever since the Greeks first invented science, thinking about how we can reinvent ourselves, how we can develop ourselves. This is the ultimate technology. And so when it appeared to be possible, how was it used and what did we do? Well, we know the horror stories. We know the horror stories of Germany and in places in the United States, of what's called negative eugenics, where government restricted reproduction. There's also a vast and longer and richer story about positive eugenics, which is where people try to choose particular matings, or now using the powers of human gene therapy and human gene testing to try to perfect us, to improve us. Now, this is not a simple story, just as John Brooke was saying about the science and religion interchange in the larger sense. It's not a simple story of religion was against it and science was for it. Rather, science itself, there were certain developments in science that pushed it one way for a while and then another way. And I tried to follow that interaction and how Christians, some followed it, some supported it, some offered resistance in particular ways. It's this complex interaction that show that religion and science are powerful forces. We get simple stories told sometimes that Darwinism led to eugenics. That's not the story. It was statistics, it was Francis Galton, it was Mendelian genetics primarily that provided a basis for some of these ideas. But yes, as genetics grew, they learned that there were some fallacies and things that didn't work in it. At each stage, they interacted with church support and church resistance. This is the story of the rich complexity of the creative tension between science and religion, where religion brings ideas, brings values, science brings knowledge, brings abilities, and how they work together. It was mentioned by John Brooke today about the Galileo story and how the Galileo story is richer than is often told of a warfare between science and religion. Well, I love the one comment by Galileo that the Bible doesn't tell us how the heavens go, but how to go to heaven. And in so many ways, the eugenics stories tells us that science gives us powers, gives us abilities, but its religion can help us guide, can help stir some of those ideas, some of those dreams, some of those hopes, because some of the scientists who were involved in developing eugenics were deeply religious. How did they use their skills, and how can we use our skills? What is the creative tension that exists? It's part of the larger story I was telling. That's part of the larger story of this morning's talk, and I think much of what went on this week here.